Hello, everyone. One of the reasons I made this channel is to talk about things that I consume. I think it's dangerous to strictly be a consumer, so making content helps me temper my consumption patterns. I cannot tell you how humbling it was when I watched Love is Blind Season 8 with the intention of making a video on the season and realized I did not want to make a video at all. So this video is a truncated version of a episode recap for episodes 1 through 6 while I address what I believe is the main flaw with this season. All right, this season is great if we're going to judge it for listening to the very loud feedback of audience members. In most recent seasons of Love is Blind, there has been criticisms about how the participants don't feel real because they are clearly attempting to pursue social media fame as opposed to real love. Others have complained that people who are clearly living on the brink of sanity are allowed to participate. The reality is that quote-unquote crazy people and the self-involved social media people and those who are only using the show for exposure are actually key in making the show entertaining. I do believe that there should be rules. Like, I have a controversial opinion that nobody with children should participate, mainly because of the liabilities regarding harm to children when they are suddenly thrust into a marriage and this new adult is participating in their life. I just don't think it makes sense. Like, you can't be a sane person and genuinely consider marrying somebody in like 6 weeks. That doesn't make sense to me. I think that no one should be invited to the show also if they're in active danger to others. Clearly, just because you have some mental health issues doesn't mean you shouldn't be on the show, but I definitely think if there's a record or credible allegations of somebody being a danger to other people, they should also not be allowed on the show. But what this does not mean is that doesn't mean that you suddenly invite one-dimensional individuals into the show. This is the danger of listening to audience members who are not self-aware. And that means you, that means me. But I've always thought that I've been kind of self-aware that basically the show's premise is kind of sadistic, right? Like, we don't want these people to be happy. We're not looking for normal people. If we're looking for normal people, you could just call up your friends. You could just ask them how their day was, and you're going to get the drama, the day-to-day drama of life. But that's not why we watch these shows. You see, people who watch Love is Blind are more sadistic than they're willing to admit. They claim they are watching the show because they want to see real love, but the reality is no one really is doing that. The reason people are willing to let the episodes proceed and just keep on binging the shows is because of the drama. And drama is not created by even-keeled people. There is a precarious balance because producers of reality TV shows do not want to make the audience too self-aware that they're watching a reality TV show that is intent on creating turmoil, but at the same time, you cannot concede to everything that the audience say that they are wanting to watch. So again, I think a lot of audience were like, I really love, real love, but all the real love couples always get the least screen time because they don't have enough drama. We want to see drama. Anyway, the lessons we should learn from this season, which I totally think is probably going to come out to be one of the worst seasons of Love is Blind, is that you need to keep the cast diverse. So that's one. And I will say, for some reason, and maybe this is because I'm Black, but I think it's a little bit more than that. I was most interested in the Black characters, even though they weren't that much more interesting than the other people. I think there's just this feeling like, okay, it'll be interesting to see how they navigate this situation that seems absolutely out of whack. And two, keep a good mix of people. And there should be like basically 4 types of people, 25% of them in the pods. 25% should be sincere. So you really need to work on those sincere people. Another 25% should be self-promotional. So you get the hint that they're, trying to just promote their social media brand or their business that they're starting. It doesn't matter. Another 25% should be lacking self-awareness. And you know what I mean when I mean that, i.e. Chelsea from that one season. And then the final 25% should be slightly chaotic evil. All right. Chaotically evil people are great for reality television. And this is what we need. Anyway, this review will be talking about the final couples and how their stories came about. I saw the previews. I did see that some of the people in the pods came out, but at the end of the day, like, pods are the worst part of this show. So the fact that they made 6 episodes just based off activities of the pods just lets me know that even when the pod people come back in future episodes, it's not going to be that serious because I wasn't even that interested when I saw the drama, quote unquote, the first time. And by the way, the next 5 episodes are going to contain both the honeymoon and the time on the outside, because we always know that the 12th episode is the weddings. So that means nothing is really going to be happening in these next 5 episodes if you can contain the entirety of the honeymoon, the entirety of the time that they share lodging in 5 episodes. So this is just going to be a completely out of whack season, and I think that the preview makes it seem like there's going to be a lot of drama, and I just want to warn everyone, and my perception is it's just going to be as boring as these first 6 episodes, because if they had more juice, they would have spent more juice. Anyway, here's me going into the couples. Before I do, actually, I realized I didn't make a slide on Madison. I just think that Madison, I'm going to be the weirdo who defends Madison a bit. I feel like I would want to be her friend, but I do think that she doesn't realize that her manipulation skills are too apparent, and I think she can only see herself. So she's a great cast member in the sense that I think she's not self-aware. Either way, I don't necessarily think she's trauma jumping, because if you don't know that someone's parents are drug addicts, how are you expecting them to ask for their hand in marriage, right? Like, at the end of the day, these people are in the pods for 7 days. They kind of have to trauma dump. It doesn't matter how frequently they came up, but we understand that Madison was able to have a lot of conversations outside of her parents and her relationships with her families. I just think she wanted to establish that first. And quite frankly, being in a conservative town like Minneapolis, I would understand as well if people were just like, she kind of saying this story because she knows that there's people who are like, I'm not going to date somebody who has that sort of family situation since it might not look good on me. Anyway, I have this whole thing about trauma dumping. Have I done it? Maybe, possibly before. And have I learned my lesson? Yes, for sure. But I definitely think it's kind of ridiculous to tell somebody who's intending to marry somebody in a pod that they're trauma dumping about something that clearly is going to affect that person's day-to-day life. Like, when you're asking where their dad is, where their, siblings are and all of that, that is going to need context, and Madison provided that context. It's just unfortunate that that context sounds like trauma dumping to everybody else. All right, let's get into Joey and Monica. Overall, I don't have a lot to say about this couple, but in any other season, they would be, the straight, they're going to make it through couple, and I think that's what's probably going to likely happen here. There wasn't too much to focus on how they come together, which likely means there's not going to be more drama in the upcoming episodes. I did see that preview, like something about how he's only dated blondes. Doesn't sound like that big of a deal. Also, it seems like maybe he has OCD. I do not know if he's saying that in the strictly diagnosis aspect, or if he's talking about OCD in the I just need things to go a particular way. But it'll be interesting to see that, and also a big question as to why he didn't bring that up in the pods. Again, people would say that's trauma dumping, but I think a lot of people would like to know about OCD in the pods. Anyway, I think that we're not going to see too much about them, and it's not going to be that interesting to me because we didn't see a lot of them in all the 6 episodes of the pods. And just so that people know, they actually asked people to get married on the same day. So the fact that Joey and Monica's proposal was so early is far more indicative of the fact that they didn't have enough material on Joey and Monica, as opposed to the fact that, it took them so quickly to propose to each other. All right, so this next is going to be about Devin, Brittany, and Virginia. Again, the black couples are always going to interest me the most, so I'm just going to go into them. First of all, Devin opened up and had a really depressed moment in his life when he abused ibuprofen to diminish feelings of pains. Look, I'm not saying that you can't form a dependency on ibuprofen, but I feel like ibuprofen may be a euphemism for another drug. I don't know if anybody else thinks that opioids were involved, but I'm getting the feeling that he used ibuprofen because he knows that unfortunately there's still a massive stigma about any other type of drug dependency. And maybe I'm being rude, but I even Googled it, and it was like your body cannot form an addiction to the pills. So I don't know if it was just like a mental thing for him as opposed to a physical dependency that happens with addictive drugs. But I just feel like ibuprofen was not actually drugs being used here. I think he was using something harder, probably opiate based, to alleviate his pain. Okay, so my issue with Brittany is that she is not fully reconciled with her sexuality. So I just want to bring this in because in general, I've had a lot of issues watching other commentators talk about this series, and they kind of completely sideline the sexuality of bisexuality and pansexuality. My issue is that it's clear that Brittany has never even allowed herself to consider women as a potential true partners. And that is a problem, because what if she has that realization in the future? See, I would be okay if she was like, yes, I'm attracted to both men and women, and that's, how I am, but I am monogamous, which she does affirm in her conversation, and that's just who I am. I just want to let you know, but you shouldn't have to worry about anything else. But where I got stuck was when she said she did not see relationships with women as serious. I think that's where the red flags came up for me, because that showed me less of a reconciliation with her sexuality. She says that she doesn't like labels, and I know that people say this, but I don't know, sometimes labels just help you situate what's going on with you. And so if you don't have the label bisexual, which likely is her sexuality label, then you're not able to assess why you might feel a certain way when you're with a man and you are thinking about a past relationship, but you're only thinking about that past relationship with longing because you never thought that women could be a serious partner. When women can be a serious partner, it's just you have to wait for that in the future. So that was just a huge red flag to me at her big age, that she hasn't fully reconciled with her sexuality and kind of a core aspect of her life. I get Devin in the sense that Brittany clearly showed that she's not someone who's really fundamentally getting who she is. If that makes any sense. I think that Brittany is bisexual, but the fact that she's not willing to even label herself in that way is what's alarming. And the fact that she can't see herself with women simply because she doesn't think that that's serious is also very alarming to me. So regardless, I kind of see where Devin is coming from. I do think that he feels like bisexuality is not compatible with monogamy, which I don't think is true. And clearly Brittany doesn't either. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents from a perspective of acknowledging bisexuality, because I see a lot of other commentators just make it be about like, oh, she's gay and she's not reconciled that she's gay. I don't think that that's actually what's happening. I think it's more that this is a woman who might have met the love of her life already. It's just that we will never know, because she's put a blocker in her mind that the love of her life cannot be a woman. All right, let's get to Virginia. Okay, I think Devin was also spot on in recognizing that Virginia is not being fully transparent. When we met Virginia and he met her when there was the reveal, I didn't feel like they were making eye contact. And I also don't feel like they actually really know each other. Okay, so here's where my potentially controversial opinion about Virginia is coming in, is I think that she's actually just on the show to self-promote. Okay, my experience as a highly educated Black woman is that other highly educated Black women tend to be very status conscious. Virginia is very clearly affluent. She's a doctorate. She's got she was an NBA dancer. And then you have Devin, who's a youth director and high school coach. I just don't think that Virginia seriously wants to be in a relationship with someone with that status. She would likely have to supplement his life in order to maintain her current lifestyle. And that's just something that I feel like, and maybe I'm misinterpreting it, but I just feel like Virginia's not really in it for that. I think she has ulterior motives. She's not being transparent about it, but she's going to allow this to ride as long as it can. And either she'll say no right before the weddings, or she's going to say no at the pulpit. But I just don't think Virginia's actually serious about Mr. Devin here. So yeah, we'll see how that's going to look. Also, I think Virginia, compared to other people who have had that same situation, is going to have a lot easier job hiding it, because I think she's just going to be like, I'm a shy girl. I'm just shy. And I think she's going to use that as a cover to make sure that there's no further investigation on her level of commitment to Devin. All right, let's get into David and Lauren. Okay, I think David's an asshole, yeah. Who I don't think has actually changed from his self-admitted past bad behavior. His inability to have a strong stance on Molly and Lauren, to me, is an indication of his willingness to string people along, and I don't know why Lauren didn't catch on to that. Also, that was so weird during the reveal. She's like, I know that he kept on saying that he's only dated good-looking people. I was like, why would you ever entertain somebody like this? Like, he just seems very self-involved. And as somebody who lives in New York City, I hate when people from these smaller towns like Minneapolis talk a big game. Like, this man would be eaten alive here in New York City. And I just don't know why a man with clearly rosacea, he has a lot of redness on his skin, why he's talking about my girl needs to look a certain way. Well, some people don't want to look like they're dating a red apple. So I don't understand why he has all this cockiness about the aesthetics of his partner. Regardless, let's go into it. I just think he wanted both access to Molly and Lauren and is smarter than past participants in navigating the emotion of others. And I really hated how David went back into the pod and he was talking to the guys about how Molly sort of forced him to say that he's breaking up with her. And it's like, yeah, because you weren't saying that explicitly. You wanted to keep that door open in case she might be interested, because you didn't really want to close the door. And ultimately, you didn't want to be forced to say, I don't want to be in a relationship with you anymore, because you felt that that would, of course, be shutting the door. Anyway, he's a scumbag. Yeah, Molly had to hand wring him to make an affirmative decision. And I really like how she talked with Lauren after to ensure that there was no bad blood, because she was kind of bold when she went back into the girls' quarter and talked about her dates. So regardless of any misgivings, I do really like Molly as well. And I'm glad that clearly in the previews we're going to see her again. Anyway, I think Lauren, unfortunately, has a high tolerance for bullshit, and I think that David is going to walk all over her until the very last moment. I believe that David's intent is going to be using his sister as the scapegoat as to why he can't marry Lauren. So keep that in mind. I think that he's never going to actually confront his true emotions about Lauren, much less actually tell Lauren what those emotions are, because his whole entire intent is going to be saying, my sister didn't want me on the show, therefore I can't marry you. All right, let's get into Ben and Sarah. Okay, I don't think they're going to make it. The reason is because I think Ben seems so blasé about Sarah's political opinions is because he thinks that she just has those opinions in her mind. But I get every indication that Sarah is one of those people who makes her opinions very vocal and does discuss these types of issues as they come up with regularity. This will freak Ben out because he thinks that people should not share those opinions out loud. So I think he probably has this idea that Sarah shared her political opinions in the pod because that's just something, you should know about your partner, which is something you should. But I think Sarah gives every indication that she's somebody who will go in a social circle and she might bring up a political situation, or somebody else might bring up a political situation, and she's actually somebody who will share her opinion. And I don't think Ben is prepared for that at all. And I think Ben will be embarrassed by it because he's somebody who, quite frankly, screams to me somebody who's actually more conservative than he's willing to admit in public, which I don't know why, because we're living in a conservative boom right now, but he's not willing to admit that. And because of that, he's going to not be prepared for how Sarah is really down with it. She's really down with it, and this is something she could talk about every day, and quite frankly probably would match better with somebody who's willing to talk about it with her every day. And I have no doubt that also Sarah's opinions are going to clash directly with his family's. And again, I think Ben is going to be in for a big surprise when Sarah is willing to talk about her true beliefs in front of his family. It's something that he probably doesn't think she's going to do, but that's exactly what she's going to do. I want to give Sarah a big shout out because it's really bold of her to have these opinions in these circumstances, and these are the type of women I would love to be friends with. Just somebody who has an opinion and is willing to share them. And a lot of people, and I understand why they believe that these opinions shouldn't be shared out loud. But to an extent, the more that these opinions are shared out loud, the more they feel less taboo, and which is important to kind of create a world that better gives human rights to people that deserves them. All right, now let's get to Daniel and Taylor, who were kind of boring. Everyone was boring to me. Let me just stop there. Everyone was boring to me. There was no pizzazz. There was no a little craziness to them. None of that except for Meg, and Meg's craziness was kind of just I kind of gave up on her being crazy. I didn't actually believe by the end of the season that she was, or the end of these 6 episodes, that she was crazy, because I was like, she actually had a brain because she didn't accept Mason because she knew that she was second fiddle. Love her in a weird way. Anyway, back to Daniel and Taylor. It is weird that Ben kept on, well, he actually only brought it up, that he might have crossed paths with Taylor in episode 4. The truth of the matter is that for Ben to have the connection that Taylor's a woman he friended on Instagram and the woman in the pods is kind of high-key him stalking her. So I don't know if he heard a rumor. I think Minneapolis is a city of less than 500,000 people. So it is possible that he heard a rumor that one particular girl is going to be on Love is Blind, and he friend requested her for that reason. And then he was able to deduce that when he was in the pods, he was talking to the woman that he heard a rumor that was also going to be cast in the show. But yeah, I think the problem with Daniel more so would be, first of all, his lack of transparency about, I think I might have seen you on Instagram, just being like honest about that. And 2, I'm just creeped out by the potential that he would have basically stalked her prior to coming into the pods. And I understand the desire to do so, but it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, not too excited about these two. I don't think they're going to make it into the honeymoons anyway. I think ultimately Taylor's just not attracted to Daniel. And I want to make sure that Daniel knows that the reason why women aren't attracted to him, it has nothing to do with his height. I feel like a lot of people, people always try to say one thing or another is the reason why they're having difficulty dating. I used to think I, as a black woman, have difficulty dating because I'm black, and now I've just realized I'm a fucking weirdo, right? Like I'm not as socially adept as I really should be, and there's different factors as to why I don't do well in dating. And I think that Daniel kind of needs to just address himself and be like, you're bored, you're kind of boring, and oh my god, I feel so mean, but you're kind of boring, and you probably could do well with a better attitude, as well as probably maybe you're going for the Taylors of the world when maybe that's not necessarily in your bracket of attraction that you should be going for. Nobody's not dating you because you're short. You probably just have a horrible attitude, all right? There's big fat people who have wonderful relationships with wonderful, good-looking people, and you want to know why they're happy relationships? Because they have good personalities. And maybe your personality isn't as charismatic as you think it is. Anyway, this is me just being really mean. I hated everything. I hated this whole entire season, and thus far, I feel like this is such a drag. And I got so excited when Love is Blind was announced because I was like, oh my god, I finally started a YouTube channel and I could review it, and I could be like all these other YouTubers that I really like. But no, this isn't fun. This wasn't fun, and I don't suspect that the episodes that are going to drop tomorrow are going to be much better. But here we go. I will be back again doing probably something truncated like this once more. But thank you for watching, and you were listening to Strategic Delusion. Bye bye.